If you're building your ABA company and you're tired of guessing, this is for you. We built the BCBA blueprint to give you real structure, systems, and support without the fluff. Details are in the description. All right, welcome everybody once again to another ABA Impact live stream. We are so happy to have once again, they've graced us with their presence. They had so much fun the last time they were here.
It's
Came
so much
back to hang out again. Molly and Jesse from Global Autism Project and ABA Business Coach. And I was telling her before we started, being not in the ABA business directly and just on the sidelines and trying to help and coach and work things out from almost a spectator's standpoint. You know, a lot of the talks that we get on here don't necessarily apply directly to me as a business owner, but Molly's talk last time we were on here really did, even beyond the ABA business, the focusing on your numbers, knowing your KPIs, understanding where you are on your roadmap, understanding where you're going. So important for any business. I don't care if you're a plumber, electrician, an astronaut, if you're building space rockets, it doesn't matter. These are all important things that apply to our businesses. And, you know, it's almost the laws of physics, right? And it doesn't matter
for sure.
what business you're in. If you don't have cash coming in, cash is not going to be able to go out and you are not going to exist anymore. So it's really nice to have somebody who can talk from experience on multiple different levels and really from a caring, ethical, clinical outcomes focused standpoint, make sure that your business is healthy, both financially and both on your clinical delivery. And this is so important. So I really want to once again thank Molly and Jesse for coming out again today. And today we're going to talk about knowing your numbers, focusing a little bit more on the finance stuff. So Molly, welcome. Jesse, welcome. Take it away, gals.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. It is really fun to be back. There's this strange thing that happens for me when I start to talk about this stuff, and it unleashes this new level of energy and passion. I think having been an entrepreneur myself for 20 years, I always tell my clients, like, learning everything in the hardest possible way that there was to learn. I get really excited about being able to share this in a way that allows people to hopefully skip over some of the many mistakes that I made as an entrepreneur. And, you know, I often say on coaching calls, like, ask me how I know. And what I mean by ask me how I know is I learned that in the hardest possible way and know not to do it that way anymore. So as I started to, I won't even say fully transition, but add ABA Business Coach to my world as the founder and CEO of the Global Autism Project, I found that one of the biggest challenges clinician owners were having was this financial thing. And so we're going to talk a lot about that today. This is indeed the foundation of an ethical practice. You, my friend, are in the right place if you want to make a difference in your business, but you can't quite figure out the finances. Listen, a lot of people I work with, I ask them, what was your revenue last year? And they're like, that's okay. You're in the right place. Nothing wrong. Super happy to have you here. You are absolutely in the right place. If you don't have an MBA, you didn't go to school to run a business. And P.S. And by the way, even if you did, because especially as it relates to the revenue cycle, the financial management of an ABA business, there is some very specific nuance. You know, I'll have conversations with people sometimes who do have MBAs, did go to school, run huge businesses. They'll go, well, why don't they just, I don't know, like raise their prices? Oh, funny you should ask. We negotiate with insurance companies to do that, right? So those usual levers that move a business forward, we can't always apply. Why don't they just charge a late fee for pickups? Oh, funny you asked. Can't do that if they're Medicaid, right? So it's this little nuance, really important stuff. Listen, if you are all done with trying to just wing it and hope for the best, you're in the right place. And my dear friend, if you know that things can be better than they are, you don't know how, you don't know exactly what, but you have a little voice sometimes that goes, you know, I think there's got to be a better way. You, my friend, are in the right place. And listen, if you want to get off of the payroll hamster wheel and get into a world in which you do not have to be struggling to catch up all the time, you're in the right place. I want to take a moment, introduce myself, as well as my wife, Asia Davis, co-founder of ABA Business Coach. Asia is an entrepreneur, digital marketing expert. She has consulted with dozens of autism clinics all over the world. Yes, she very much got dragged into this field by marrying me. Prior to this, she was a fitness studio owner. She worked for Big Box. She didn't like what she saw. She started her own to do it differently and do it better. Perhaps that sounds familiar. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Molly. I'm the founder and CEO of the Global Autism Project. I have a TEDx talk, it's been watched lots of times, all about doing with and not for. And I use those same practices, whether I'm working clinically, whether I'm helping to build capacity worldwide, or I am working with clinician owners at ABA Business Coach. And I have consulted with probably well over 100 clinics of all sizes at this point. Now, this particular masterclass is because after we have worked with so many ABA clinicians and in conversation with partners across the industry, we started to see some common threads emerging. People who wanted to provide excellent, quality, clinically amazing services and were being kind of thwarted by not quite sorting out the business side of things. So we decided to do this. ABA Business Coach was built on the mission of helping clinician owners run and scale their businesses with ease and joy. There was something really heartbreaking that was happening for me as an entrepreneur, as someone who's been in this space for over 20 years. And that was seeing clinician owners start businesses with all the passion and dream and excitement and having them crash and burn. And that wasn't always the case, right? But at the very least, people were really stressed out and overwhelmed by all that they were dealing with. Here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about some mindset shifts that set clinician owners apart because, my friends, what goes on between your ears makes a big difference in your business. We are going to go over the financial mistakes that clinician owners often don't know they're making. Now, here's the thing. You went to school to work with kids to change behavior, to understand how to improve people's lives, not for the finance. And again, even if you did go to school for the finance, there's some nuance in this field that's not always super obvious. So I want to dive in first just to the mindset. Now, if you've listened to anything I've done in the past, this is a repeat, and I don't care because you can't hear this enough, right? This is so important. This is at the heart of what is going on for people in their businesses. This is the thing that allows you to see that, like, oh, that's just a blind spot. And we all have pockets of ignorance as it relates to the world. None of us are born knowing everything, and none of us are born being taught the exact same thing as everybody in our world. That's what makes it a lovely, beautiful place, in my opinion. So I want you to imagine for a minute that this little pie represents all of the knowledge in the entire world. And there's this tiny slice of what you know. You know how to do prompt fading. You know how to write a treatment plan. You know how to speak your first language. You know how to ride a bike. You know what you know. And then there's another part of stuff that you realize you don't know. There are a lot of things that you don't know, right? Maybe you don't know how to, build furniture. Maybe you don't know how to fly a plane. Maybe you don't know how to operate on someone, but you know that you don't know that. Now, that's not what keeps us stuck in the world and as entrepreneurs in general. What keeps us stuck, what gets us feeling like that total, that feeling of just like, oh, there's got to be a better way. That happens over here. And this is not drawn to scale. What you know is probably very teeny tiny. What you don't know is probably a little bit bigger. The vast majority of knowledge in the world, what you don't know, that you don't know. And I have found that money mindset and financial blind spots tend to really impact ABA businesses. So when we say money mindset, what the heck do we mean? We mean the beliefs, attitudes, emotions that inform your financial behavior around money. See, there are things that happened a long time ago in your life that you don't even think about that play a role in how you deal with money in your business. It is those unseen beliefs that are driving the show. And when we don't look at those beliefs, we don't reach our potential. And oh, by the way, when we don't reach our potential as business owners, we don't reach our potential as mentors to the next generation of clinicians. We don't reach our potential we don't allow the kids that we work with to reach their potential. So it is vitally important that if you're a clinician owner running a business, that you get this part right. Now, most of you right now might be having a little thought in your head, little voice in your head that's like, you need to reach your potential. You remember that other time you didn't reach your potential? Oh, maybe you shouldn't even be doing this. This is your narrator, guys. And this narrator will have a field day, an absolute field day with these little thoughts, especially around money. It will remind you of all the times that you made bad decisions, that you didn't think it all the way through. Listen, this is what your narrator loves. And your narrator will make some stuff up. Your narrator will convince you, will have you believe that just because X happened, it means Y. Okay? Now, here's a big piece, the fear. I said earlier on the call, sometimes I talk to people, they'll say, you know, what's your revenue? What do your numbers look like from last month? They don't know. They're not looking. They put money in the bank account. They take some money out of the bank account. They hope for the best. Now, I have to tell you, I have found that when we actually look at it and we restructure a little bit what money goes where, right? What we're actually able to do, and we do this in our program, we start with a whole financial foundation. And in that, we call it the Find the Money. It's the Find the Money sprint. We have our programs broken up into sprints, right? And it's the Find the Money sprint. Because once you do look at it and you get very intentional about where that money goes, you can find some money. Here's another thing that I find comes up for people who are dealing with money challenges in their business. I also just want to take a little moment and let you know that based on how the revenue cycle works, right? Meaning you do the work, you build the work, you have to pay people for doing the work before the money comes in for the work that you build. Sometimes the insurance company writes back and says, nah, I don't want to pay that bill, right? All of that. It is challenging at best. It is not like you are selling widgets and at the end of the day, you just count up the cash in the cash drawer. That is not what happens. Okay. So I just want just a little minute. But even though we know it's complex, even though we know of all this, there's still this sneaky little thing that creeps in, and it's called judgment. The financial situation your business is in. I invite you to complete that sentence. The financial situation my business is in is, maybe it's tenuous. I've seen all kinds of answers. Tenuous, stressful, overwhelming, unknown, and makes you. I invite you to complete that sentence because again, your narrator will hop in here. Oh, the financial situation your business is in is crap and makes you a bad leader, makes you bad with money, all kinds of things, right? Here's the thing, my friends, the financial situation your business is in is the financial situation your business is in. And when you can totally suspend judgment and get that, then we can go to work. So real quick, what do the founder of Google, Michael Jordan, gymnast Simone Biles, and CEO of Pepsi have in common? Not going to answer that yet. All right, let's dive in. Type yes in the chat. If you're watching the replay, just engage here, right? Think yes. If you have ever made some mistakes that have cost you or your business money, I think we all have. If you've ever felt bad about those mistakes because you are just doing the best you can, I think we all have. And a big yes in the chat. If you knew better, you would do better. Here's the thing, guys. When you know better, you do better, right? Maya Angelou tells us that. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. You didn't go to school to learn this. Nothing wrong. Nothing wrong. Oh my gosh. I cannot tell you the number of people. I bet I've talked with conservatively 300 clinician owners, like one-on-one conversations. And people are like, oh my gosh, I feel really bad. They feel really ashamed, right? Like no shame. This is a no shame zone. This is a no judgment zone. If you think it's bad, I've seen worse. Okay. So mistake number one is this assumption that you can provide high quality ethical services without knowing your numbers. My friends, that is actually not possible because high quality ethical services require a few things. One is your presence of mind in leading your organization. They have done all kinds of studies showing that when you're stressed about money, literally your IQ goes down. Okay. And the unknown can be just as stressful as knowing. In fact, it's often more stressful as knowing and seeing that it's not good. Okay. So it's impossible. It's truly impossible to provide high quality ethical services if your brain is worried about the finances and if you can't make payroll. See, the quality of care you provide is 100% dependent upon the patient experience, provider experience, and you need to enable access responsibly. So to be able to hire, scale, continue running a business that serves your community, you need to know what's coming in and what's expected to go out. Okay, we have another training we did with these folks on the KPI dashboard. There's also a free resource. We'll link it after this call. You can get access to that. All right, that KPI dashboard allows you to see it, allows you to track it. But we're talking finances today. Here's a question I often ask clinician owners that I talk to. What is your collections rate? I often ask it on trainings. Do you know your collections rate? Some people don't. Some people don't know what is meant by collections rate. No problem. I also was not born knowing what is meant by collections rate. And it's a little counterintuitive. People are like, I don't have anything in collections. No. That's not what this is, right? This is, and it's like ridiculous that you even have to have a such thing as a collections rate, honestly, because you are sending bills to large organizations that have plenty of money and ability to pay their bills, e.g. insurance companies here in the US, and yet they don't always pay. They don't want to. My dear friends, you go ahead, try paying your electric bill the way an insurance company pays you. They will turn off your lights. You're going to get your electric bill, you're going to scan it, you're going to go, well, I don't think it was that many kilowatt hours. You know, I didn't say that many kilowatt hours could be used. Nope, denied. They will turn off your lights. Meanwhile, you all are billing out these insurance companies and they're paying you sometimes when they feel like it as much as they want. Because of that, you have to be crystal clear about your collections rate. The amount you bill out is not necessarily the amount you receive. Now, again, nuance in this field. When we are calculating collections rate, this is related to the money you come in and that comes in into your bank account in relation to your contracted rate. Again, nuance in this field. I know a lot of people bill higher than their contracted rate. That's fine. But when we're talking about collections, we are talking about that contracted rate. Okay. By the way, NPS, you should see that collections rate 95 and above. 95 and above. So if for every $100 you bill out, you should be getting $95. Okay. I want to know even more. I want to know your collection rate by payer. How much does it compare to your billed amount? Are there any payers that you consistently collect less than 90% from? They're denying, they're playing all kinds of tricks, right? Do you have a report so you can see collections by CPT code and payers so you can evaluate what's actually coming in? You can see patterns, right? Behavior analysts are looking for patterns. Are there patterns in terms of what is not coming in? All right. Collections rate is very important, as is this thing that absolutely impacts your collections rate. Denials. Denials and the overall health of your organization are inextricably linked. Your organization's health is tied to your denials and your systems for handling them. Everybody gets denials, and a high rate of denials negatively impacts your cash flow. Now, if you get a denial and you go, oh, how much is it? Whatever, it's fine, whatever. It's not worth the time to take it down. Or if you get a denial and you get the same denial the next month, the following month, etc., and you are reinventing the wheel every single time you're dealing with that denial, it will only make things harder for you, okay? Because it's going to take valuable time and energy. So what I want you to ask yourself is how we're going to get at some of that. I don't know what I don't know. What is our current claim denial rate? And what are the common reasons for denials? Pro tip, create a system to handle those denials moving forward. How quickly are denied claims being reworked and resubmitted? Time is of the essence here, guys. Sometimes, this is another crazy insurance company thing, sometimes claims can time out. They'll deny it, and then you're not getting paid. Sorry, too late. Okay. And again, do you have a system in place for tracking patterns by payer, by code, and by clinician? Sometimes it's a clinician issue. Sometimes it's a payer issue. Whatever it is, let's track those patterns. Let's see what happens. Okay. So to not be in denial when it comes to these denials, you want to drill down on that root cause. Now, here is another thing that I often see people do. They will get a denial, they will fix something up, and they'll send it in on their own. If it is something that your team member was responsible for, please create a rubric and provide feedback for them so that you are not having to do that rework in the future. Okay. Lost revenue like flies out the door on denials. All right. Speaking of team members, running a business is a team sport. Okay. Not recognizing that running a business is a team sport is a fatal mistake. They go, oh, those are clinicians. They don't need to worry about XYZ. Oh, that's the admin team. I hear this all the time. Everybody just needs to stay in their lane. Everybody just needs to stay in their lane. Okay, that's fine. But sometimes there's going to be some overlap. And oh, by the way, you are a team headed in the same direction. Clinics that I see where there is a massive breakdown between admin and clinical, clinicians don't even have an understanding of how their work and how their allocation of their own time impacts the overall health of the business. Okay. When you have a rev cycle team that's working claims and does not liaise regularly with your clinical team to make your processes more efficient, that won't work. Okay. Your business is a team that is working together towards the same goals and needs to have an understanding of the whole organization, what this all looks like. Okay. Also, it is super common that people overspend on admin overhead due to over siloed admin roles. We see this very often. Admin is through the roof. I go, how many kids do you have? How many staff do you have? How many are clinical? How many are admin? It's like, whoo, you got a lot of admin overhead. All of the money is generated by that clinical team. So if you have all that admin overhead, your clinicians have to make that much, they have to generate that much more revenue to support that admin. Okay. Wouldn't it be nice if the revenue that was generated was supporting more clinical? That's a possibility. All right. Cross-training your staff so that they can handle multiple functions can reduce overhead and improve efficiency overall. Okay. And having a shared understanding of your budget increases and ability to work together and stay on track is really important. Again, systems in place. Systems in place. Now, I just said that that your clinical team is who generates money for the business. So what people will sometimes do is they will hire a BCBA that they can't quite afford. And here are the reasons for that. One, they are trying to compete with, quote, big box. and let you in on a little secret. You cannot compete with big box. And here's secret part 2. That's great news. You don't have to. There is enough to go around. There is enough to go around. When people say to me, well, you don't really know how it is because there's no BCBAs in my area. You don't really know how it is because there's no BTs in this area. Well, first of all, BT is anyone with a high school degree who loves working with kids. We'll figure out the rest, right? Second of all, you don't know. I promise you, you don't know that there's not BCBAs in your area. There are sometimes people who have moved to the area who don't know that a clinician-owned center exists, and that's who they'd love to work for. There are sometimes people who are a few courses away, back home visiting. They'd love to be able to move back home, but they don't know of any jobs in the area for them. So please, please, please. The other thing is, I look at the budgets of a $40 million big box company, and that's kind of medium box, right? They're much bigger than that, right? But I look at the budget in terms of what they're able to do with their BCBAs, where they're able to make that up. At scale, they are able to pay people more than you can. That's just the way it works. The other thing is, those big box people that you think you're going to compete with, they generally have a very healthy reserve account in the millions. Okay, so they are able to lose money, and that is okay. You as a clinician owner are not able to do that. Now, for some wild reason, and maybe the advice came from big box and sort of trickled down to clinician owned, but again, nuance in the field doesn't always work. It's not one size fits all. For some wild reason, people think it doesn't matter how much you pay your BCBA. What matters is how much 97153 they're supervising, how much revenue they're generating overall. False. Untrue. If I hear one more person say to me that you can't make money on your BCBAs, I don't know what I'm going to do. Scream, start a movement? I don't know. Anyway, it's totally untrue. And you have to not lose money on your BCBA, because just think about it for a moment, right? If your team members are generating, if your team members are working their billable hours, they're not always hitting them, and they're costing you, your BCBAs are costing you, say, $8,000 a year. Maybe you have 24K, right? That means your first $24,000 of 97153, and that's a lot of hours of 97153, has to support your BCBA salary. Okay. So billable hours, reimbursement rates, PTO, salary, benefits, number of supervision hours, all of these things impact your ability to pay your BCBA. Okay. Now, a lot of people will just kind of calculate. They'll go, oh, I'm going to pay them $83,000. My reimbursement's this. They're going to work this many hours. First of all, this, my friends, is another free tool. We'll link it in the notes or wherever we link things for these replays, right? Few things to consider for your BCBA. I feel like there used to be a financial advisor on TV, and she was called Susie Orman, and she would go, can you afford it? And people would say, I want to buy a car. I want to buy this engagement ring, whatever. And she'd be like, how much money do you have? No, you can't afford it. I feel like I do that a lot. So instead of people calling me for a live call-in for, can you afford your BCBA? We created this salary calculator. Okay. So you're going to type in the base salary. You're going to put in the billable hours per week that you are going to contract with this person to provide. If they are not hitting their billables, they are not doing their job. That's another story for another day. Next webinar, maybe, right? Weeks worked per year. I always recommend you use 47 or 48. Even if you only have 2 weeks a year of PTO, I don't care. People get sick. There are holidays. There's all kinds of things. I generally use 47. Your reimbursement rate per hour, okay? And then what your total revenue is, how much you're able to afford to pay that person, etc. Okay, so in this example, paying $70,000. Oh, by the way, if you're giving benefits and 401k and all that stuff that you legally need to do in a lot of places, then paying someone $70,000 costs you $98,000. Okay, Billable hours per week, you're going to use, again, what you are going to contract with this person to do. Okay. And then this will calculate for you. You don't have to spreadsheet this at all. This will calculate for you whether or not that is an appropriate salary for that person. Now, looking at this, it's like, oh my gosh, actually, 52,000 net profit. Wow, we could actually pay a lot more than 70,000, which is good because in most markets you need to pay a lot more than 70,000, right? But again, paying 70 costs you 98, paying 80 costs you off the top of my head 130 something, right? So you want to make sure, not 130, sorry, 110. You want to make sure that 101. Sorry, don't worry about that. Use the calculator, right? But you want to make absolutely sure that you're not going, oh, 52,000. Let me go ahead and pay that person 52,000 more. Okay. Again, free resource, salary calculator. It's magic. Go ahead and put in the salaries you have now. And here's the thing, when you put in those billable hours, do not put in your pie in the sky in a perfect world billable hours. Put in your actual billable hours. That's where you're going to probably find some money. All right. We're blazing through this. Number 6, assuming insurance is one and done and that all payers are created equal. No, 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 no. All right. First of all, working with insurance is an ongoing process. Please connect with your insurance providers. Have conversations with them, okay? Insurance is confusing on purpose. It really is. They consider the amount that they pay out each year their losses. So they control that very closely, just as any business would with any other loss, okay? So you give them your money, they decide what they're going to pay for or not, and they keep the rest. This is why people are upset with insurance companies for making billions of dollars, okay? Because they are controlling their losses, them paying their bills, they are controlling their losses so effectively that they are making sure that they're not paying anyone too much for too many things. They are making sure that they only pay when they absolutely have to, enter denials, right? All kinds of things to, quote, control their losses. And there are some laws that have created some transparency in the insurance industry. I can't remember exactly what the law is called, but many years ago, a few years ago now, they said, okay, insurance companies, you can pay people all different rates, but you actually have to publicly release what you're paying people in different zip codes for different billing codes. Oh, this is great. This is massive transparency. This is incredible. Here's the thing, guys. They release this in such huge, massive files that you can't just like click into a database and type in your zip code and your payer code. That'd be nice, right? You actually have to work with a company who can access this information. And I'm just going to, for a moment, shout out FlyChain. We love them, all things finance. Many of our clients use FlyChain. One of the things that they have access to is that information, is that data. So they can pull your region of the world, they can pull that CPT code, and they could say, hey, somebody's getting paid $17.89 an hour. Somebody's getting paid $16 an hour. Oh, by the way, you're getting paid 12 or a unit. Sorry, you're getting paid 12 a unit. Ooh, you might want to negotiate, right? So they give you some of that negotiating power, because I ask people all the time, when is the last time you negotiated your rates? And oftentimes they say never. My friends, here's the thing. You can negotiate those rates every single year. Now, if you haven't negotiated for 8 years, they are not going to take a look at what you've done and what you're up to and go, oh, you haven't negotiated for 8 years. Oh my gosh, we owe you money. We should have increased year over year. They're going to give you the exact same increase as they would give you if you negotiated 1 year ago. So put in your calendar right now, put in your task management system, whatever you do. Again, another day, another webinar, right? But track that. From the date of contract, 1 year later, you are back at it. You are negotiating, you are asking, you are letting them know what you're doing. You are showing them how you are saving them money with the outcomes you've produced. Okay. So I want you to negotiate with insurance. I want you to have conversations with insurers. I want you to even thank them when they pay their bills. Listen, I know it sounds wild, but relationships matter. Okay. So knowing your cash position, knowing exactly what's in the bank, planning for payment delays. There is at minimum a 30 to 90 day lag between service and payment. Again, you are not selling cupcakes. You are not having to buy ingredients and then sell the cupcake and you get paid that day. That is not it, right? You are working, you're doing all the things, and you're getting paid on a good day 30 days later. So you need to assume that lag and you need to forecast your expenses accordingly. Now, here's the thing. You don't get to pay your bills the way the insurance company pays their bills. Wouldn't that be nice if you could just write to your landlord and write to your team and say, hey guys, Blue Cross didn't pay this month, so we're going to try and maybe next month we'll be able to pay you. It doesn't work like that. So you have to be very meticulous with how that revenue cycle is managed. In a perfect world, we want you to build up 3 months of operating reserves. See above, 90-day lag in payments. So 3 months of operating reserves so that we don't get delays, we don't derail payroll, operations, etc. And then make absolutely sure that you're benchmarking your salaries against actual collections. So we're going to do all this math, hope for the best, blah, blah, blah. And maybe our collections rate is not good. Here's the thing, guys. Payers are inconsistent at best. That is the most diplomatic, lovely way I could say it. Listen, the reality is, if you ran your business the way that insurance companies run their business, e.g., you just don't want to pay for things, you decide whether or not you're going to pay for it, you would be in trouble. I don't think it's crazy to say that you're literally trying to run a business relying on what would be in any other field, criminals, to pay bills on time so you can pay your bills on time. It's challenging, right? So here's the other little secret about insurance companies that they don't necessarily want you to know. They need you. They have a legal obligation to provide what is called an adequate provider network. Now, some of you are in super saturated markets, right? And they still need to provide, if you actually look, CASP, I believe, keeps a listing of this, of the adequate provider networks. They're few and far between. Most of the country is not in an adequate provider network, or most of the country does not have an adequate provider network for autism. All right. Here's the thing, guys. Billing. Here's the thing. If you have an awesome biller, I love it. And it's not good enough. If you have a terrible biller, I don't love that. And that's also not good enough. Also, to not have transparency into your biller's process, that is a big problem. And I'm going to share with you just an example, just a little example of what a bad biller or billing process could be costing you. Now, as I've said, we work with all kinds of organizations, all different sizes. And one of the very first things we'll do is we will say, who does your billing? Somebody will say, oh, I have this person. They retired from an insurance company. They're great, blah, 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 blah. And we'll say, awesome, go ahead and have a conversation with them this week. Let's get the collections rate. Let's figure out what denials are happening, et cetera. Like initial, that's the first thing. If you get off this call and you're like, man, I was on this call and she talked a lot, I can't really remember what she said, this is the only thing I want you to do. Dial in your billing process. Know your collections rate. That is your data point. Just like you have data points in behavior analysis, that is your data point. And you go from there and you dial in the process. So just a little example. Oh, and by the way, sometimes when I tell people to go and ask for the collections rate, and the biller will say, that's actually going to take a few months to put together. No, that's your old biller. Let's talk. We know some great people. That's your old biller. Your biller should be at minimum monthly providing you with a report of how much they billed, how much they collected. By payer at the very least. I like it better when it's by CPT code and by clinician as well. I want to be able to really see what is happening. Where are we not hitting our hours? Okay. Here's the thing. When you're not getting paid for all that you've billed, what that means is that you're not getting paid for all that you've worked. Okay. So if you're paying a biller 6%, pretty common. I've seen higher, I've seen lower. But they are not collecting 10% of your revenue for every $100,000. You are losing about $16K, exactly $15,400. So let's scale it up. It's always fun. How much is billing costing? Well, if you have a $1 million organization and you are losing $15,400 per 100K, that is $154,000 for billing. If you have a $3 million organization, that poor collections and that biller cost is $462,000 for billing. If you have a $5 million organization, that's costing you in excess of $750,000. How many people would y'all hire if you had an extra $750,000 sitting around? All right. So let's look at this. This leaky bucket. And leaky buckets. Talk about this all the time. You have $100,000. Your biller has a 10% collection error or 90% collections rate. That's costing you $10,000. That revenue minus the loss gets you to $90,000. Now, I look at the biller cost minus the revenue, okay? The biller charge, $4,500. That's a 5% billing. Billing is costing, again, $14,500. Your business is losing revenue, okay? Let's scale this up. Let's reduce our biller collection error. Instead of my biller costing me 10 grand in error every 100 grand, let's make it 3. Okay. Now the revenue loss minus the error, the revenue realized is 97,000. Instead of 90, it's 97. Now I've got a biller who's charging me 3%. That's okay. That's only 2,910. Now the actual cost of my billing has gone from 14,500 at when I have 100 per 100,000 to 5,910. How does that scale up? Oops, here we go. The actual cost of your billing, instead of being $15,000, is $5,000. You can reduce the cost. I can't see my slides here because there's a, let me see if I can, nope, that didn't do it. Okay, here we go. If your revenue over the course of a year is $1 million, sorry, it's $3 million. Oh, came back. Give me a second, guys. I gotta do it. Okay. Yes, if your revenue over the course of a year is $3 million. Now listen, there's a lot of numbers happening. If you're like, the math isn't mathing, let's just hop on the phone. Let's schedule a call. We'll tell you how to do that at the end of this, okay? But anyway, if it's $3 million, your billing could be costing you $425,000 with that high collection error, that leaky bucket. You can reduce the loss and cost to have revenue of $3 million and your billing is only $117,000. That is a big difference. That's over $300,000. Those of you who are like, I don't have enough money to hire anyone, I can't expand, blah, blah, blah. $300,000? You could stand up another clinic for that. Just saying. All right. So here is what we want. A monthly report comparing hours scheduled, hours delivered, and hours billed. And hours collected, right, in money. What percentage of submitted claims are denied or require correction, and how fast are those reworked? And how do we ensure that every single authorized hour gets billed? What's the process for catching missed ones? Now, you'll hear that we said authorized hour because there's this pipeline that you follow. We go authorized. Of those authorized hours, how many are scheduled? Of those scheduled hours, how many actually happen? Of those hours that actually happen, how many are properly documented in the data collection, right? Of those hours, how many are billed? And of those hours, how many are paid? So high level, if you just want to know big picture how you're doing, look at your auths to paid. That's big picture. Now, there's all kinds of reasons we don't use all the hours in an auth. So maybe you just look at scheduled to paid, and that's going to start to show you where some of the challenges are. Here's the thing, guys. A single oversight repeated monthly does become a silent drain on your revenue. You cannot just outsource billing. If your biller is amazing and your collections rate's 97%, that's awesome until they go on a big vacation. And now you don't know how to do it or something happens, right? If your billing rate is terrible and you have a bad biller, yeah, not good either. It's not good if you have bad biller or if you have a good biller. What's good is transparency, you understanding the process. Now, I'm not saying you need to bill yourself. I'm not saying that. Totally fine to outsource when it makes sense. And you just want to think for a minute about what we mean by when it makes sense. If you have one or two payers, you can probably do that on your own. I am working on figuring out with just data collection and conversations that we've been having exactly at what point in your business it makes sense to outsource services and what point you should do them on your own. But certainly if you have one or two billers, cliff notes, too long didn't read, do the billing yourself. Learn the process, okay? You have 10 or less clients, do the billing yourself, okay? Here's the thing, guys. All this financial overwhelm, all of this chaos, it does not have to be like this. And you, my friend, do not have to repeat the same mistakes. And you, my friend, do not have to figure it out by yourself. Talked about this earlier. The reason we started ABA Business Coach was because I stayed up lots of nights trying to figure stuff out, not getting how the maths, not understanding any of it. I get it. I've been there. I've been awake at 3 a.m. terrified about payroll. I've been awake trying to figure out how we're going to make this thing happen. I've taken the calls from the people who say, yeah, I've got $100K for you today. No problem. Those are called loan sharks. Those are called merchant cash advances. Those are terrible. I've been there. It does not have to be like that. Okay. So at the beginning of this call, I asked you what the founder of Google, Michael Jordan, Simone Biles, and the CEO of Pepsi have in common. We often get lots of guesses. Listen, here's what they have, guys. They have a coach. They have mentorship. And they credit it as being the turning point in their careers, as our clients do. They're like, oh my gosh, things were going this way. And then we started working together and it's a totally different world now. It is the turning point. It has changed the trajectory of my entire business. That is what we're out to do. Okay? Because here's the thing. And we have this little idea that we only need a coach when we've failed. Michael Jordan did not fail before he got a coach. And you wouldn't know his name if he didn't have a coach. Frankly, you wouldn't know my name. Maybe you don't, but some people do, right? If I didn't have a coach, the reason the Global Autism Project was able to grow the way that it was, we were able to impact so many countries, have presence all over the world, was because I had coaching and guidance and support. When you grow yourself and you have guidance, you will do better. When you choose you will do better. I struggled For years in my business, I threw everything at the wall and I just hoped was stuck. Just hoped it stuck. Now, I mentioned to you, my wife, Asia, had a fitness studio. She had a wildly successful fitness studio. She had her processes dialed in. She had her systems. I was like, how do you know all this stuff? She had a coach. She had a coach who had guided her along her journey and even created resources and processes to help her grow her business. Listen, guys, when I saw that, I was like, oh, I need to hire a coach. So I did. And that's the reason we've been able to be successful. The reason. So I want you to just take a minute and ask yourself, what would it be like if you had a roadmap for your financial success, for the learning how to delegate for real, learning how to hire? Oh my gosh, everybody says hiring is a problem. Hiring is a problem. I'm going to tell you a little secret. Hiring is a symptom of a bigger problem that is lack of systems and processes and financial management in your business. Okay. We have a cohort. If you're catching the replay, you may have missed the date, but we accept people into our program called CEO, Clinician Entrepreneur Owner. That is a mastermind group. It is other people who are exactly where you are in their business and working together to learn through a year-long coaching and mentorship program. I don't know if you're catching the replay. We may or may not have openings available, but if you go to ababusinesscoach.com/CEO mastermind, you will be able to at least get on our calendars, have a conversation. We can help you unravel some of the stuff that you are dealing with. We have bi-weekly coaching calls, mindset calls, quarterly sprints. We're reviewing your metrics with you every month. You get a customized KPI dashboard. You have access to a resource portal. And the best part, I think, is access to the community of like-minded business owners. So I want you to just meet for a minute Megan. She is one of our clinician owners. She is amazing. She now takes Fridays off. When we met her, she was working like more hours than she could count. She was sweating each pay period. She was questioning whether or not she could afford printer ink. Now she knows her numbers, has a financial roadmap, and is living her best life. She kayaks like hundreds of miles a year. It's amazing. Janelle is similar. She's in our program. She'd only been in business for 18 months, but it was not doing what it needed to do. This is an extra fun picture for me to see this week because this is when she got the key to her new space. And just this week, she moved into her new clinic. It's totally beautiful. It's really exciting. And all of that happened because she chose herself and she chose coaching. So again, if you are interested, ababusinesscoach.com/CEO mastermind, we're going to send you a lot of these free resources. We're going to send you a lot of, just from being on this call, getting this replay, but there's lots of good stuff out there. So I want to take a moment. I want to thank you for spending this time with me, for knowing and understanding. This is one of the first things you do, right? Is to put yourself into the space to start to see what it is you don't know about your finances in your business. I will also share with you that if you saw me 8 or 10 years ago, I would be the least likely person in the world to understand this. I was just not a numbers person. I worked with kids. I had fun. That was what I did, right? Being not a numbers person is not a thing. It doesn't work, okay? And so we work with a lot of people who are absolutely not numbers people, who are overwhelmed, who are neurospicy, all kinds of things that they're like, it's really impacting my ability to run my business. That's who we work with. That's who we support. We would love to support you. Go ahead, click that link, and we will be in touch. Thank you all so much.
Molly, thank you again. I really appreciate it and your time. And I think it's important that if you are going to commit to your ABA business, commit to it. I always joke about have you ever seen a dead possum in the middle of the road? Most people have. Like, what was his problem? And the answer is commitment. He got halfway across the road. He turned, he looked, and that's it. You get flattened, right?
Yeah.
And if you
Yeah.
get halfway across this business road, you're
Yeah.
better off not trying to cross in the first place. Diving in, immersing yourself in the learning and understanding, knowing exactly where you are on the map and where you're going is so
Yeah.
important. And whatever your learning style is, whatever your flavor is, have a coach, do courses,
Yeah,
get
for
into these
sure.
communities, participate, get on our Facebook group, the Odyssey, ABA Business Coach. All these things are going to push you forward incrementally.
Totally.
And that if you
Yeah.
get in and you're doing the work and you're paying attention to it, it's just like going to the gym, going to
Yeah.
your piano lessons, whatever it might be. If you commit yourself to it and you do the work, you will be successful. This
100%.
is one of those rare industries where if you follow the path and you
Mhm.
stay committed, you will be successful. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah,
It's
well,
really
there's
amazing.
no shortage of kids who need what you have to offer, right? There's no shortage. And this is a relatively new field. So there are a lot of people who would love to work in this field if they knew it existed. So there is plenty, there is enough. And I think, like you said, this is one of those rare industries. And there is so much nuance. That revenue cycle management is wild in this field. You ask anyone who comes from any other line of business, and the sort of usual levers that people choose, raise your prices, shorten, tighten your payment terms, all of that, that's just not possible. And so you really do have to work with somebody who understands the nuance of this field specifically, and who, at the end of the day, what I'm mostly concerned about is not how people can make a profit in this field, but how kids' lives can change. That's what I care about. That's what keeps me up at night. That's, the kid I worked with when he was 6, saw him last week, he's 30. That's okay. But it's like, that's what we're here for. That's why we're doing this. And that's why we have a responsibility, an ethical responsibility to learn how to do it right. So thank you for the opportunity to be here, to share more information. Always a good time. And I hope folks enjoy the replay. So take care.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for attending.
Thank
Thanks
you.
again, Molly.
Take care. Bye-bye.
You're already doing the work, investing your time, your energy, and your vision. So let's make it count. Build something that works without breaking you. The eBCBA Blueprint is the way. Get started for free with our foundation course.